jusqu'à Sauveterre. Après, de là à là, il y a 17 km, c'est pas la piste, là c'est de la route.
Ah oui, ok. Alors la route,
La piste cyclable.
le Véloroute des Deux Mers,
Oui,
bien
voilà,
sûr,
là.
jusqu'à Sauveterre.
Oui.
Et après, ça descend, oui.
Ici, là. Ouais. Ça monte, ça descend. Hein. Enfin, il y a des côtes. Hein.
Alors, jusqu'à
La Réole, Saint-Macaire. Ouais.
la Réole, et il y a un camping là.
Mais apparemment, il y en a un qui est bien, la Fontée.
Fonte.
Il est bien. Donc, la Réole, c'est un vide quand même. Ouais, c'est Fontée.
Welcome to episode 57 of the Cycling Europe podcast. My name is Andrew Sykes, and welcome to the sixth part of this series of podcasts, which is telling the story of my journey, my cycling journey around Europe in the summer of 2022, mainly through France, but also hopefully soon into Switzerland and then down the Rhine, taken in Germany before a return to the Netherlands and back to the ferry at Rotterdam. Now, the bells that you've just heard were recorded in a little village called Saint-Brice, a few kilometres from where I'm currently standing. And if it sounds a bit echoey, there's a reason why it's a bit echoey, is because I'm standing in a church. The church is in a town called Sauveterre de Guyenne. Very nice, Bastide town, created by Edward I back in the 13th century. But those bells in Saint-Brice, I recorded them because they mark the halfway point of this trip. When I recorded it about an hour ago, it was 4 weeks, 3 days, 12 hours into the trip, with 4 weeks, 3 days and 12 hours remaining. The question is, am I halfway through the trip? Well, in terms of time, I am. I can't change the time. I've got to get back for that ferry on the 3rd of September, because I need to be back at work on the 5th of September. In terms of distance, well, I've cycled 2,150-ish kilometres. Now, I estimated before I set off that I would be cycling probably around 4,000 to 4,500 kilometres, so I'm more or less there in terms of the distance. And I've taken 5 of my 10 trains, so again, that will suggest a halfway point. Ideally, I need to be in Andermatt in the Swiss Alps at the beginning of the Rhine cycle route, with about at least 10 days to go before my ferry, okay? So that's currently the plan. Now, this podcast is going to be all about me cycling along the Canal de la Garonne and the Canal du Midi here in southwest France. It's known locally as la Véloroute des Deux Mers, the cycle route of the two seas, because it joins the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. And actually, since I left Roanne earlier this week, I've been following the signs more or less for that particular cycle route. Arrived in Bordeaux a couple of days ago, had a day off in Bordeaux, and then set off again this morning following, well, an excellent railway line all the way to where I am now, which is Sauveterre de Guyenne. So it's been a fantastic morning of cycling, brilliant surfaces, brilliant infrastructure, beautiful scenery, and for the first time I really feel as I'm in the south of Europe. Obviously it's very, very hot. I was just sitting outside a few moments ago. There was a little lizard crawled on the warm steps of the church. The views, the terracotta roofed houses, very, very southern European. But my destination at the end of this particular section is the town of Sète on the Mediterranean coast, and that's where I'm going to be heading for over the course of, well, I reckon the next week or so. At the end of this particular segment, for those of you who've read my first book, Crossing Europe, if you'll remember that I went to southern Italy. And in southern Italy, one of the reasons for choosing that as my destination was that I had some friends who had a house, Basil and Liz, in the south of Italy. And I went to stay with them for a few days at the end of the trip before returning back to Britain. Well, they've now moved and they now live in southwest France. And I'm hoping that when I arrive in Sète, they're going to drive down from where they live, not too far away, in their camper van, and we're going to meet up. I haven't seen them for quite a few years, so that will be a nice end to this particular segment of the trip. I haven't actually got to the Canal de la Garonne yet. The Canal du Midi is the bit between Toulouse and Sète, between Bordeaux and Toulouse. After the railway line that I've just completed, I now need to join the Canal de la Garonne, and that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon. And my plan is to stay in a campsite not too far away from here at a place called La Réole. So that's the plan. It's nice and cool in this church. It's a pity I couldn't stay here and cycle in here all afternoon, but unfortunately I'm going to have to plunge back into the sunshine and the heat. Alors c'est aujourd'hui que vous finissez, n'est-ce pas?
Oui. Normalement c'était demain, mais on a écourté quoi. Enfin, on a fait une grosse étape hier de toute façon.
Ouais.
Aujourd'hui ça fera une grosse étape.
Et vous allez prendre le train à Agen?
Ouais, c'est ça. Agen-Bordeaux et après Bordeaux-Sète et puis après un autre pour rentrer chez nous.
Ok.
Ça sera une grande journée quoi.
La prochaine fois, peut-être il faut faire un grand loop.
Une boucle.
Voilà, un boucle, ouais. Et vous avez fait combien de kilomètres en tout?
Je crois que ça fait 350, je crois.
Okay.
Il me semble. C'est 350, je crois.
Those two French chaps that you just heard, they are heading also in the direction of Agen, which is my destination for today being Thursday. I've bumped into them quite a few times over the course of the last few days because they also started in Agen, and we've even shared a campsite together, including the one last night, which is here in La Réole. Now I'm standing in the middle of a spectacular bridge. It's been close to traffic. I think it's close to traffic more or less permanently, which means that you can just stand in the middle and take photographs and just glory at this 170 metre long suspension bridge over the Garonne River. Now, yesterday continued my cycle in the direction of La Réole, eventually got here. Still haven't found the Canal de la Garonne. I found the Garonne. The Canal de la Garonne actually starts quite close to here, but I haven't actually started cycling along it yet. So my first job this morning is to go and find it, which shouldn't be too difficult because the signs are pretty good. Now, back in February of 2022, I think it's episode 46, I interviewed a chap called Declan Lyons. Now Declan is an Irish, he's actually a zoologist I think originally, but he has written two guidebooks. He's written the two Cicerone guidebooks, one about the Canal de la Garonne and one about cycling the Canal du Midi. And I interviewed him for the podcast, so if you're interested in finding out from somebody who really knows what they're talking about in terms of all the details, then go back and listen to, I think it's episode 46, I'll check, and if it's not I'll correct that information later. Now, he actually lives not far from Sète, I think near Béziers, in a village, or rather he lives there some of the year. So I did contact him a few days ago to say, hey, I'm coming down when we're passing by your house, any chance of meeting up? Unfortunately, he's stuck in Ireland. He's had a bad bout of COVID and he's got a few other issues, so he's not actually in southern France until later in August, which is a pity because he was, or he would have been, an excellent person to meet up at the end of the trip. I'm already meeting my friends Basil and Liz, so that's a good recompense. But anyway, he has, when he emailed me back, he sent me loads and loads of information about campsites and bits and pieces. So what I'm going to be doing is using that information. He's my second campsite advisor now for this part of the trip, because my good friend Tim Sanders has also sent me lots of information about campsites. Now, last night's campsite, Camping du Rouergue, yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it, is just opposite the decaying 1950s beauty of the town of La Réole. Tomorrow, or rather tonight, sorry, Ajam, well, it doesn't look to me as though there's a campsite in the centre, so I'm going to be reading through the notes of both Tim and Declan very, very carefully to find out where I'm going to be staying tonight. But that's a long time in the future, because the first thing I've got to do is to find the Canal de la Garonne and head off on what looks like a very, very flat ride. It's only a few minutes since I recorded that last bit. Now, I had to turn round and double back on the bridge, because actually the route heads south from La Réole, so I didn't actually return into La Réole town itself. Now, I want to really backtrack to something that I didn't say yesterday about the cycleway from Bordeaux to Sauveterre-en-Guyenne. It is... Bonjour. It's a fantastic example of how to create a cycling, walking route out of a railway line. Now, if you remember, it was probably part 2, perhaps, of this series of little podcasts where I was talking about the route, the Avenue Verte from Dieppe, and how wonderful it was, and I didn't think it could get any better. Well, the authorities in Bordeaux, in the region of Bordeaux, have done better. Basically, they've created a 50-kilometre long cycleway. Alain Juppé, who used to be the Prime Minister of France, he was the mayor of Bordeaux for quite a while in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was very proactive when it came to creating cycleways, and he classified a lot of them as departmental roads that people couldn't drive on. And the effect of that is that they are obliged, the authorities are obliged to maintain the roads to a very high standard, including the cycle tracks. And it was amazing. And along the way, lots of people had set up shop in old stations. There was a good cycle place just not that far from Bordeaux. There was another one which was being converted into a hub where people could stay and presumably get advice, but that wasn't open yet. And there were cafes, things like that. So a really, really good example. I think I said this before about the Avenue Verte from Dieppe. I didn't think it could be bettered. I would be very surprised if anybody, any local authority, any regional authority, any cycle infrastructure planner has managed to outdo the Voie Verte that runs from Bordeaux to Sauveterre-en-Guyenne. But let's see if I'm proved wrong. Ok, merci. C'est gentil à vous, merci. Au revoir. Au revoir. I've made a big mistake. I've gone in the wrong direction on the canal. I passed the écluse, the lock at Fontaine, and I noticed it was number 49, brilliant. Looked on the Cicerone guide, yeah, number 49. And then I just passed, well, what looked like a little village in the distance. Thought, well, I'll go there to buy my breakfast. Headed up a long, long hill. One of those hills where you think, oh God, is it worth just turning back and continuing or keeping going? I kept going and I couldn't find the shop I was thinking was up there. So I looked on Google Maps and I suddenly realised, actually, I'm heading in the wrong direction. everything since arriving at the Canal de la Garonne, probably about 15-20 minutes ago, has been in the wrong direction. I need to go back now and re-find the right direction. Oh, that's the first big mistake, directional wise, that I've made since arriving in Rotterdam, I think. Bloody hell, that's annoying. Now heading in the right direction on the Canal de la Garonne, and have been doing so for the past 20 kilometres. First impressions, very, very good. It's a white canal. On a sunny day like today, there are lots of trees for shade, which is excellent. And the surface is pretty good. Not quite as good as it was yesterday morning, or yesterday afternoon as well, on the disused railway track from Bordeaux, but still pretty good. A few routes to negotiate, but apart from that, so my mind is now turning to where I might be later on. It's 50 kilometres, or was it 60? I've just had a look, I think it might have been 60 actually, to Agen. There aren't any convenient campsites in Agen, so I've just contacted somebody on Warm Showers who lives in the centre of Agen. Let's see if they come back. They said they were flexible with the amount of notice, so we'll see. And yeah, so far so good. So could you just introduce yourself?
I'm David, and I live with my wife Christine in Worthing.
Hello.
Right, we're on contact on Twitter.
Yep.
Because you tweeted me a couple of days ago saying that we're going to meet heading in opposite directions, and we've just met.
Yep.
Now, you said you're on part of a bigger tour. You explain what you're doing.
Yeah, we're on a career break, and we are 9 weeks into our 12 weeks. And originally we'd done a loop around France, but originally we had planned to go up the west coast. Because of the fires and campsites being shut, we decided to play it safer and come up the canal.
So where did you actually start?
We started in Saint Malo.
Yeah, took the ferry across from Portsmouth, started in Saint Malo, and we've done all sorts of zigzagging, and today we've done 3,000 kilometres.
Oh wow! So you're not like me. I'm following various routes.
Yeah.
But you're not doing that. You're just kind of making it up as you go along.
Sort of. We've got the map of France with all the green routes, and we're sort of dipping in and dipping out of those, and joining them up, as it were, for our own little tour, where places we've not been before.
Yeah.
But you've been following the Canal du Midi and the Canal de la Garonne.
Yeah.
So what's your experience been of that since? Because I'm heading in that direction now.
Okay.
And this episode of the podcast, Bonjour, is all about these particular canals.
Right.
How's it been?
Very different. Some bits are very different than some others. Generally, most of it is nicely shaded. The bit after Béziers is not, but they are trying to improve by replanting. Some places have loads of places to sit and drink, and others haven't, so you've got to be organised. And campsites can be near the path or quite far away, depending. So again, but generally loads of cyclic tourists, loads of people, all sort of ages, electric bike, standard bikes, kids, all sorts really. Yeah. So it's been really good, loads of people.
It's very different. I mean, when we went through the Massif Central and the Cevennes, we were lucky to see one cycle tourist a day, weren't we? So it's funny, it's strange how it just changes in different areas, but it's nice to see. It's really busy, it's nice.
And what do you prefer? Do you prefer when you're kind of on your own in the middle of nowhere, or do you prefer a bit of company from other cycle tourists?
I like both, to be honest. It's a nice mixture.
Well, we needed something flat because our legs were tired, so this is perfect after this.
We struggled a little bit in the Cevennes. It's a polite way of putting it, but a lot of pushing. But we've had a fantastic time.
This section here, there's a sign when you go down there in a few minutes. There's a sign that says warning Racine, because it it's a bit like cycling on my local canal back in West Yorkshire, where there's loads of routes. Does this continue or does it stop?
Yeah, c'est racines ou chassé ou chaussée déformée, depending. So that means it's just totally misshaped. There are some big patch where it's quite bad.
Okay.
Where you just get nicely rattled, you can't fall asleep. And some bits are really good. It depends really, but generally the path is not too bad.
Are you going as far as Bordeaux?
Yes, and up to Royan.
Well, when you get to Sauve, I've forgotten what it's called. Sauve something on Guyenne. Sauveterre en Guyenne. There's a cycle route from there. It's a disused railway, and it's brilliant.
Okay.
Oh, right.
The surface is just fantastic. So you'll have an amazing time there.
Good.
So what are your plans after you finish the Canal de la Garonne and then got to Bordeaux? Where are you going next?
North, because of Brexit, I'm restricted to 90 days. So we're allowing 89 days, and then.
Are you not tempted just to stay? I think I'd be tempted to stay over the 90. There's two fingers to the Brexit lot.
Yes, but I'm hoping to get a visa next year, so I don't want to upset the French.
Yeah.
But now we go home and then a week.
And then we get carrying on, and depending if we've got any more days left, when we get nearer to Saint-Malo, we might do a loop in Brittany, and then we get our ferry back in Saint-Malo. Yeah, end of August.
And then are you planning on going back to work or?
Then we still got a bit more time off. We're very lucky, so we're going to Croatia for a month in September, and then mid-October we'll have to go back to work.
Right, okay.
And beginning of November for me.
And what do you do for a living?
I work in an office, and Christine's a nurse.
I'm a nurse.
Okay.
So Christine needs a break, deserves a break. And there's never been cycle touring before.
Yeah.
So
it's a really good time. Yeah, we've done a few little loops in England and in Normandy before, but not big loops. So that's been really good.
So as a novice cycle tourist,
yeah,
has it surprised you? Is it different? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it?
No, to be honest, I've been watching every single YouTube videos there is, listening to everything I can find. David's done loads, so I think we'll talk you through. Practiced a little bit in Norfolk when we couldn't leave England because of COVID, so we had a fun time, and no, it's good. Just be organised and not pack too much.
And you're on. That's a Thorn, and that's
they're both Thorns.
They're both Thorns.
Yeah.
Thorn is famous for tandems.
Yes.
Yep.
Were you not tempted to get a tandem?
No.
In fact, every time I see a Thorn, I didn't know Thorns did anything but tandems.
Yes, they do loads of bikes. We went to their shop and had it all measured and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
very pleased with them.
Yeah, really good.
Solid.
Right, well, good luck with the rest of your trip, and
thank you very much, and you too.
And you.
and
Good
enjoy
luck.
Croatia. Are you taking the bikes to Croatia?
No, we're going to walk.
Oh, you're going walking?
Yes.
Oh, right, for a month.
Yes.
God, do you ever give up? All you
We'll
need
be
to do now
really
is...
calm when we go back to work. No emergency will be too big.
yeah. Well, good luck with all that, and
Thank
thank you for talking.
Thank you
Nice
very
to meet you,
much.
and enjoy the rest of your trip.
Et depuis quand c'est automatique?
Oh, ça fait plusieurs années, je sais pas dire. 5 ans, je crois, par là.
Ah oui. Et les bateaux, ils doivent quoi? Un bouton ou que font-ils?
Au-dessus du canal, avant l'écluse, alors avant par là et avant par là,
Ouais.
il y a un câble qui est pendu avec un fil, une perche.
Ah, je l'ai vu.
Voilà.
Ah,
Il tourne cette perche et ça ouvre la première porte.
ok.
Après, quand ils rentrent, là, ils vont appuyer, il y a un bouton là sur la cabine.
Oui.
Ils appuient sur le bouton et ça ferme la première porte et ça met le niveau et ça ouvre la porte, la deuxième porte.
J'avais vu quelque chose comme ça.
Voilà.
Et je croyais que c'était peut-être quelque chose pour faire du canoë.
Non,
ou,
c'est pour les péniches parce que c'est haut.
Ah, oui. Ah, merci. Intéressant.
Did you catch that? That was the chap who is running a little snack bar in one of the écluses buildings. Écluse being a lock, and I asked him if he was the éclusier, the lock keeper. He wasn't, which I think I knew already, because all these locks are automised. But he then went on to explain the system, because I presumed it was a case of probably just pushing a button, but it's not.
If I look further down the canal, there's a cable that's hanging between one side of the canal and the other. I'd seen these earlier in the day. I thought they were something to do with perhaps, I don't know, canoeing or whatever. And there's a cord that you pull in the middle, and that sets in motion the automatic opening of the lock. How wonderful. Numéro 30, Thierry Maric. Excellent. Sonnez ici. The gate is opening. Is there anybody there? Bonjour. À l'autre côté? Oui. Ah, voilà. Enchanté de vous.
Maric.
Andrew.
Andrew.
Oh, il fait chaud aujourd'hui.
C'est très très chaud.
Merci. Voilà.
Hier.
Je le mets ici.
Oui. Betty.
Oh là 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 là. Oh, merci beaucoup.
De rien.
Pouf. Aïe 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 aïe. Ça fait une longue journée. J'ai fait 89 kilomètres.
Ça fait beaucoup 80. Quand on est chargé, c'est beaucoup.
Oui, absolument. Mais c'est bien de trouver quelque part ici à Agen, parce qu'il n'y a pas de camping.
Non, il n'y a pas de camping, non.
Je suppose que vous recevez beaucoup de personnes.
Cette semaine, tous les jours.
Ah oui?
Tous les jours cette semaine.
Oh là là. Oh.
Ouais, il y a un café vélo. Je sais pas si vous avez déjà vu.
That was the rather wonderful Maric, warm showers host in Agen. Did everything that you would want a warm showers host to do. Offered me a beer when I arrived, made it clear that she was going to cook for me, showed me the shower. I had 2 showers when I was there, one last night, one this morning. Good person to chat with, met her son. Really positive local experience, and that's the joy of using warm showers, I suppose. Now, this morning I'm trundling out of Agen, again by the canal, just to catch up. Yesterday, when I look back, it was kind of split into 2 halves. The first half of the day from La Réole, really beautiful tree-lined canal, fantastic cycling, albeit a bit rough underfoot sometimes with the routes. Mentioned that in that conversation with David and his wife Christine. And then the second half, it kind of became a bit less impressive. Not in any way, shape or form bad, but just kind of everything's comparative, and it was just a bit less impressive. So I'm hoping that we have a return to how it was at the beginning of yesterday as I make my way further along the Canal de la Garonne. So far things are looking positive, although I am still basically in the suburbs of Agen. I've been looking at the map, and well, the next big destination is of course Toulouse. I'd like to spend a bit of time in Toulouse. I'm not going to spend a whole day off there, but what I think I'll do, there's a campsite which is about 20-30 kilometres from Toulouse. It's about 80 kilometres from where I am now, so I'll stay there tonight, then tomorrow have a shorter day, and then stay in another campsite on the other side of Toulouse after a relatively short cycle of perhaps 50 kilometres, something like that, which will give me hopefully a few hours to spend in Toulouse itself, which lots of people have said very positive things about.
I did learn from Marique, the warm showers woman, that although there's no campsite in Agen, there is it's called Vélo Café, I think, but it's more than just a cafe. It's got a dormitory and get your bike repaired there. It's in one of the old buildings that's next to the viaduct that carries the Canal de la Garonne across the valley, which incidentally is France's second longest canal aqueduct, I learnt. Anyway, I popped down there this morning and yeah, it does indeed have a dormitory. Very, very quiet, although there was a Swiss-German chap there who chatted to me. It sounds as though he was on a similar trip to me, but he, unfortunately for him, has got problems with his derailleur and his cassette on the back, so he's had to stop his progress. But when he described his route, it sounded quite similar to mine in terms of doing a big loop around France and then heading back, in his case, back to Bern. Right, so I've left him behind, and I can see, yeah, in the far distance, a bit more quieter canal. That was a digger kicking into action. It's only 9 o'clock, so people are starting to work. I've had my breakfast courtesy of Marek, so I don't need to go and find my breakfast this morning. Hopefully I'm going in the right direction today. Obviously yesterday I started off going in the wrong direction, and let's hope by the end of Friday that I am somewhere near to Toulouse. When I woke up this morning and poked my head out of into the garden of Marique's place, it was actually quite, well, dare I say, cold. She'd done my washing for me, and I took my washing in from being dried on the line, and it was really cool. And I thought, oh, excellent, we're going to have a really nice cool day. But it's now, well, about 9:30, and I'm standing by the canal changing from my long sleeve shirt into my t-shirt, because again, it's just so blinking warm, and the weather forecast is going to have it even warmer. Next Tuesday, back up to nearly 40 degrees, which is, oh, I know it's the south of Europe, but it's ridiculous. I've escaped the confines of the canal, and I've come 5 kilometres to the south of the Canal de la Garonne to a place called Haut-Villars. It gets mentioned in the Cicerone Guide by Declan Lyons, and also my warm showers host yesterday, she mentioned it as a place to visit, and it is very, very beautiful. It's kind of perched on the edge of the cliff, so you get fantastic views of the Garonne River. Can't actually see the Garonne Canal from here, but it is there somewhere. It's listed as one of France's most beautiful villages, and it certainly is. And the problem is, because it sits on the top of a cliff, there was a very steep climb up to the village itself, and I admit I just got off and pushed the, 500 metres or so. In doing so, I had a nice chat with an American teacher who's here on a writing retreat, he said, at the bottom of the hill, and he's thinking about his next novel before he flies back to America to take up or continue his job teaching in a university in New York State. But it's a good place to be inspired for writing, I would have thought. Very beautiful. Lots of nooks and crannies in which to escape and just sit down and think about your next novel. I'm tempted to do the same myself. A murder mystery involving a bicycle and a cyclist. No, let's not go there. If I had to invent a word in French to describe the town of Grisol, it would probably be the word grisole, because it seems to sum up perfectly what grisole is all about. Put it this way, it's never going to win the competition of la plus belle ville de France. This is Neu-au-Villars, which is where I went yesterday. But it's got a decent campsite up on the hill, and that's where I stayed last night. Just one other attraction from yesterday, after being at Au-Villars, continued cycling down the canal, there was this bizarre thing called the Pont de... wherever it is, I've forgotten where it is exactly, but it's about halfway between, well no, more than halfway between Agen, where I stayed 2 nights ago, and where I am now, Grisole. And basically, back in 1974, they opened this system which replaced 5 locks, and it consisted of this contraption that pushes boats, or rather pushed boats, up a hill in what amounts to a very large bathtub. It reminded me very much of the system they had in Trondheim for the bike lift. Don't you if you remember that? It's a unique thing. It's never been copied, and you can perhaps understand why it's never been copied. But at the same time, you've got to admire the fact that they actually built it in the first place. Curious thing. And there's a visitor attraction there now. You can visit it, and it's worth a half an hour pause from cycling along the canal just to see what they've done. Curious. Very French. Yeah, hats off to the people who designed it and made it, but it never really caught on. And then it stopped working in 2009 simply because the traffic on the canal didn't merit having such a contraption in existence. Right, a quick catch up then from today. I had a very nice conversation with a woman called Marie on the campsite just before I left this morning. She was from Pézenas. Now I remember Pézenas. I'm sure it was the town that they filmed the bits and pieces for À vous la France, that 1980s BBC French language programme, and I did mention this to her, and it got me thinking, because it's not actually too far from the route, and I'm tempted to deviate after I've arrived at the end of the Canal du Midi to Pézenas to see what it's really like, because that was one of the things that helped me to learn my French back in, well, when I was a teenager. Might do that. Quite a busy campsite with cyclists. I was the first to arrive. I did think perhaps I'd be the only one there, but by the time I went to bed last night, the place was heaving with cyclists. I suppose basically it's a campsite. It's on the Garonne, or near the Garonne. Shame about the busy road that you've got to climb between the canal and the campsite, but apart from that, it's a great place to stay. So the plan for today is Saturday, and it's about 9 o'clock. Now, I've been to many, many places in France, not just on this trip, but over the years, but there's one place I've never been, and that is Toulouse. It's called La Ville Rose, the pink city, because of the colour of the buildings, and people speak very positively about Toulouse, so I'm not going to miss the opportunity of having a good old look around. So today the plan is I'm going to cycle the 30 kilometres or so to Toulouse. I've booked myself into a city centre hotel, and I'm going to use this afternoon, hopefully, to have a good wander exploration of Toulouse, and then set off tomorrow on the next step of this journey, which is the Canal du Midi, the second bit of the Véloroute Des Deux Mers, linking the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. So that'll be tomorrow, but for today I better set off so I can make the most of my, it's not really a day off, but my afternoon off in Toulouse. After 30 kilometres, almost exactly, I've arrived at the end of the Canal de la Garonne, and as you can probably hear, it's not the most spectacular of locations. In fact, it's right next to the slip road onto the motorway. Now I'm going to see if I can navigate this road system in order to find the start of the Canal du Midi, which I think is just over to my right. But there are 2 big roads. Thankfully there's a a crossing. It's called des ponts jumeaux, the twin bridges. Right, I can cross this one. There's a second one, but I'm going to have to wait for the light to change. Yeah, this is, well, I suppose it's the nature of being in the city centre. Two canals meeting in a fairly inauspicious place. I was reading a plaque all about the Canal de la Garonne. I could see another one on the other side of the road that some other people are looking at, and I presume that one is all about the Canal du Midi. Right. Yep, motorist going through at red, and then it's me. Okay. Right, the Canal du Midi, I can see it. Yeah, I found it. And it immediately, the first thing that strikes you, it does look a lot older than the other one, the Canal de la Garonne, which is of course the case. It's about 9 o'clock in the evening in Toulouse, slowly making my way back to the hotel. The verb in French is flâner. I think it's one of my favourite French words because I seem to spend half my life being a flâneur, just wandering around. But I think it's the best way to explore places. Did try and go on a guided tour, but there were none available until later in the day, so I just kind of did it myself. Ended up seeking out the nooks and crannies of Toulouse, and it really does live up to its name of being the pink city. Practically every building is a shade of light red because of the bricks that they use. So yeah, I'm glad I've been, and it lived up to the expectations that people had said. Now, one thing I haven't done today is really thought about tomorrow and the Canal du Midi, which is my next mission in life. I did originally say I'd meet Basil and Liz on Tuesday, but I think I'm going to put that back until Wednesday. I reckon it's going to be 4 days until I can actually get to Sète. And when I get back to the hotel in a few minutes, that's what I'm going to try and do, split it up into 4 days. It's going to be more of a challenge than the Canal de la Garonne because, well, I think a lot of the track is actually not so well made. It's quite a rough track in places, although according to Declan Lyons in his email earlier this week, improvements are being made, so we'll see, and I'll report back not just to him but to you. Sunday morning, and I'm standing in more or less the same place as I was yesterday morning when I arrived on the Canal de la Garonne, but this time I'm standing next to the Canal du Midi, about as far as you can get before falling into the water of where the Canal du Midi starts, just next to a little bridge. Now, about 250 kilometres down to Sète, so I'm thinking at least 3 if not 4 days. And tonight, I've actually, when I was looking at the various accommodation options, there was a campsite at Alzon. Went onto the website and you could actually book, so I paid my €13 and I've actually booked myself in there, which is a weight off my mind, but it does mean I've got to get there. I reckon it's about 80 kilometres. I've just seen a sign next to the canal here which tells me that Carcassonne, which is a bit further along, is 102 kilometres, so that kind of fits with what I worked out last night, but you never know, and I'm expecting it to be a more difficult ride in terms of the surface than the Canal de la Garonne has been, because that was really, really good for when it comes to canal cycling. I'm expecting a bit more of a challenge from the Canal du Midi. But, on the positive,
I'm also expecting to be cycling downhill. For the last 3-4 days along the Canal de la Garonne, it was basically all uphill. Now I can't guarantee I'm at the summit, but I'm hoping that there's going to be a bit of downhill from here in Toulouse down to Sète. I mean, there has to be, because we're not at sea level here in Toulouse, so at some point it will have to go down. I just hope it's immediately rather than tomorrow or the day after. But I'm about to find out. Oh, that was really nice. Just saw a market on my way, still in the suburbs of, well, still in the centre of Toulouse really. And there's a big market, and made my way through, bought some bread, bought some saucisses, local saucisses, got myself some tomatoes. I was given a peach by the woman on the fruit stall. She refused to take payment, don't know why. And then also a bit of goat's cheese, which I was just buying there. Problem is it might melt, so I might have to eat that before my lunch, but hey, these are the things that we cyclists have to do, eating cheese before lunchtime. God. About 40 kilometres on from Toulouse, cycling down the Canal du Midi, and I think this is the calm before the storm, because on my map I can see a solid green line that I'm following, and then it becomes dotted in a few kilometres time, and that is where I think the surface begins to become problematic, and those are the sections where people have said, oh, you know, it's really hard going. But I think I've got a few more kilometres of decent surface. It's not perfect. It's nowhere near the quality of the railway track, disused railway track from Bordeaux that I was taking a few days ago. But that was a very, very high standard. But we'll see within the next half an hour, just how bad it does become. Or perhaps my map is wrong, who knows, let's hope so. The canal itself is, compared to the Canal de la Garonne, it is very twisty and turny. I remember Declan Lyons saying that it was a canal that followed the contours dictated by geography, much more than the more modern Canal de la Garonne. What is modern about it is the motorway that you can see and hear, probably hear it now, which is just over to the to my left. Comes quite close sometimes. That was something that didn't really have on the Canal de la Garonne. You did feel as though when you were out of the towns, bonjour, when you were out of the towns, you did really feel as though you were in the middle of the countryside. Well, I am in the middle of the countryside here, but there's a reminder of modernity in the 20th century. It's interesting that the engineers of the 20th century and 21st centuries, they clearly have chosen similar spots to the engineers of the 17th century when it comes to putting their major highway. On my right, however, is a far more beautiful scene. And I'm just passing one now, just an occasional village or town, usually with the tower of a church popping up. It's a little bit hillier to my right as well, which makes sense because that is, well, eventually in the direction of the Pyrenees. So it makes sense that it's flatter to my left, to the east, than it is to my right, to the west. Right, 5 to 10 minutes ago I moved away from the bit which was tarmacked, and that coincided with not just a motorway service area, but probably more importantly when
Bonjour. But more importantly, when the sign said we'd left the Haute Garonne, so it's now somebody else's responsibility for maintaining the track. And, well, it's definitely deteriorated, to say the least. Transferred bank, so I'm now on the bank to the west of the canal. The motorway has moved to the west as well. I can still hear it over in the distance. There's a railway track also between me and the autoroute, and the track itself by the canal is pretty rough going. In fact, there are two tracks. There's one right by the canal, and there's another one just on the top of the bank. And I did look in the Cicerone guide, and Declan does say that this section is one of the worst. Now, it's not, for me, on a touring bike with very wide tyres, it's not too difficult, but I can imagine just getting to a bit of tarmac road. I can imagine if you're on a racing bike with a thin tyre, that would be pretty, well, impossible. Et aussi, vous avez des boissons?
Alors regarde, pour les boissons, tout est là.
Alors,
Coca, ici, des jus de fruits, Perrier, Orangina, eau minérale, eau gazeuse, bière.
pas de bière, pas encore. Vous avez du coca?
Non, non, c'est du Coca. Histoire. Et maintenant.
En 18 ans,
Ouais.
il a beaucoup changé.
Ouais. Quand on est arrivé, en 2005. Toutes les maisons éclusières étaient habitées par des éclusiers, à l'exception de celle-là. Parce que
That was a nice chat for a Sunday afternoon. He was the chap who, with his wife, runs the little shop there, and they also sell ceramic mobiles that she makes and sells in the little shop. He was saying that he's lived there in the summer for 18 years. He's from Sète, his wife's from near Avignon. He spent most of his teaching career, he said, or he was in the Éducation nationale, most of it on, I think he said, the Île de la Réunion, which is one of the French overseas territories, and then come back here to live in his retirement. And he said that so much has changed in 18 years of living there in that little lockkeeper's cottage in the summer. And he said there were two groups of cyclists who use the Canal du Midi. One group wanted everything, and he exaggerated. He said, tarmac, traffic lights, pharmacy, supermarket next door. And there are others who prefer the more rustic, uneven surface, rough track, which is what this section actually is. And I think I'm definitely with the latter than the former. I actually quite like this rougher section. It's a lot quieter as well. Back between Toulouse and, well, those kilometres south of Toulouse. It's very busy with people on fast bikes, whizzing up and down for their Sunday morning exercise. Whereas this is more what you expect from the Canal du Midi. It's just a shame that they've got a disease in the trees. They referred to it as cancre coloré. I'm not sure what we would say in English. I'll look it up later. And they've replaced a lot of the trees so you don't get as much shade. And that's certainly been the case in the last 20-30 kilometres. So it's quite exposed. Yeah, interesting chap and an interesting chat. a very still morning, very beautiful morning. I'm trundling along a very quiet country road. Immediately to my right are drooping sunflowers, a vast field of them, and to my left is a crop that's been cut down. And in the far distance on my right, to the west, I can see the Pyrenees. It's so nice to, over the last 12 hours, have been able to see something which is grand in scale geographically after so much flat land and relatively modest hills prior to this in the trip. So it's just great to see the Pyrenees, and they'll probably be there for the next few days before I head along the south of France and in the direction of the Alps. Now, last night's campsite, very interesting place, again popular with cyclists. It was airline themed because the two people who ran it, this chap and his wife and his 3 kids, they all seemed to be busy in the bar last night. Used to work for Air France. It was called Escale Occitane. Escale is the French word for a stopover. And in the bar they had airline seats and things like that. A bit quirky. Now the Canal du Midi was really rough in the final section that I did yesterday. So what I'm going to try and do, the next stop this morning is Carcassonne. Carcassonne is not very far from here, it's only about 15-20 kilometres. So I think what I'm probably going to try and do is just take minor roads in the hope that when I rejoin the Canal du Midi, either at or after Carcassonne, the route will have improved. Let's hope. And the sunflowers, they've now changed to big, fat, black grapes. I was given a bunch of grapes last night on arrival at the campsite. The chap who runs it, he took me to the place where the bikes are, or the bike people put up their tents, and he pulled one from a vine, a bunch of them. They were delicious. I can't say I'd want to be anywhere else apart from on this bike, cycling very, very slowly with this beautiful sunlight, beautiful scenery, and really calm, quiet Monday morning. Monday's not my favourite day in France because everything is shut and it's more difficult to do things, but hey, I forgive it if it's like this. I stayed on the road for perhaps 5 kilometres, but the route I was following with Google did take me back to the canal via a very thin, overgrown little snicket. I'm glad it did though, because being on the canal is very addictive despite its rough track, and it's not as bad as it was at the end of yesterday. A lot better, still very rough. But I've just arrived. This is what I would miss if I stuck to the roads, because I've just arrived at a beautiful écluse lock, and there's perhaps 1, 2, at least 2 if not 3 locks descending down the valley, down the hill in the direction of Carcassonne. Not many people out, still very early, just me, a couple of cyclists, local ones rather than tourers, a jogger, a dog walker. This is just beautiful. So the incentive to actually stick with the Canal du Midi rather than take the roads is a strong one, but I reserve the right to completely change my mind if the track surface goes rapidly downhill. But I think I should now be in Carcassonne within the next half an hour, I think. As a solo cycle tourist, you by definition spend a lot of your day on your own. which is nice if you like that kind of thing. And coming to a place like Carcassonne is always going to be a bit of a culture shock in terms of just suddenly meeting hordes and hordes of tourists. But actually, it's such a big place that even with the hundreds, thousands of tourists that are here, I've just managed to successfully push the bike with 4 panniers and a tent all the way around the little streets of Carcassonne pretty successfully. Took my time, was patient, and far more accessible than, dare I say, the tiny confines of the limited number of narrow streets that you can get on when you go to Mont Saint-Michel. I'll be glad to get back to the canal, however, which is now my next mission. Tuesday morning, and a bit of a catch-up. After leaving Carcassonne yesterday, I eventually managed to find my way back to the canal. I think I made a couple of wrong turns, ended up on quite busy roads, then on a rough track which wasn't the canal, but eventually did make it back to the canal. Now I have to say that yesterday afternoon, cycling along the canal, the experience wasn't a great one from the perspective of a cyclist. Quite rough tracks, really varied. Some were okay, some were terrible, but very rarely was it actually a decent track to cycle on. Now, towards the end of the day, I did take up the suggestion of a chap I met at the campsite last night, or 2 nights ago, and he said there was a campsite in a place called Poulos. I've forgotten its name, but it was halfway between a big meander in the canal. So I headed down quite a busy but good quality road for about 8 kilometres last night, and found that and stayed there last night. Pitched the tent in essentially a sandpit. At least I didn't require my pegs. I then proceeded to have a bit of a rant on my website about the state of the track. Now, I'm fine. I'm on a bike that can take it. My Koga World Traveller was made for things like this, with really fat, wide tyres. It's a substantial bike, and it can put up, hopefully, touch wood, with this kind of track. But this is marketed as a cycle route to people who just want to go out and have a nice cycle, and I think they would really struggle. You would never ever manage to cycle some of the routes yesterday with a ordinary bike. You would either risk damaging the bike or just would become extremely pissed off with the quality of the route. But it is marketed nationally and regionally as a cycle route. Now, when I crossed the border from Haute-Garonne into Aude, which is the department where I am now, it was obvious that the attitude of the authorities in Aude was very, very different to those in Haute-Garonne. Haute-Garonne, lots of signage, that's the department with Toulouse at the centre. Lots of signage, decent quality track, etc. You moved into Aude, signage disappeared. I don't think I've seen a sign since moving across the border, not for the Canal des Deux Mers, not for the Canal du Midi as a cycling route. So at least to their credit, they don't actually market it as a cycle route, but it is part of a bigger thing. And anyway, this morning after my night in the sandpit, I've made my way back down to the canal to a place called Argelier, I think it's called. It was all a bit Manon des Sources in the town centre, in the village centre just then. I bought my croissant, my pain au raisin, my coffee from the boulangerie, and just stood watching people. And it was all a bit kind of, bit strange, funny goings on. Policeman having a real good old go at an old woman for parking her car in the wrong place. Anyway, I've come out of the centre of the village and I've made my way to a little restaurant called Le Chat qui Pêche, which is a nice name for a restaurant. Reminds me of when I lived in Tours years ago, and there was a restaurant called Le Lapin qui Fume. Must be a popular way of naming your restaurant. Anyway, I'm standing next to Le Chat qui Pêche, and the good news is that it looks as though this next section of the route, the Canal du Midi, has actually had some work done on it. It looks as though it's actually a proper track, and perhaps I've actually missed a bit because it's not just in the direction I'm going in towards Béziers, but it looks to me as though heading back in the direction I would have come in had I stuck to the Canal du Midi, it's actually a lot improved. Now, how long it continues, I don't know. It might just be round that corner there that I can't see, where it goes back to being what it was like yesterday. But today should be an interesting day. In terms of accommodation, well, I've contacted a warm showers chap in Agde, which is on the coast, the first place you get to really when you get to the coast. That may come to nothing, who knows. I'll just kind of play it by ear, I think, today in terms of finding somewhere to stay. And I'm meeting Basil and Liz tomorrow evening. They're staying in Pézenas for a couple of nights. Again, haven't exactly worked out the logistics there, but enough waffle. I need to get down onto the track, onto the canal side, and start cycling on what looks like a brand new track for cycling.
Pardon? Un peu de sucre?
Oui, oui. Et contient beaucoup d'eau aussi.
Oui,
c'est très rafraîchissant.
Oui. 70 centimes, s'il vous plaît.
Voilà.
Hop.
Merci.
70. Un et deux. Hop.
Merci.
Allez, merci.
Merci, au revoir.
Bonne journée.
I stayed in Béziers in 2013 when I was cycling along the Mediterranean, and I remember staying in a hotel in the city centre overnight and thinking, well, it's an okay kind of place. And then I left the following morning and I went over a bridge and looked to my right and I saw this beautiful cathedral, an old city, and I thought, wow, I've just completely missed that. Anyway, I continued cycling and all I got was the view. Anyway, I'm now back and I can see what I saw back in 2013, which is, albeit from a bit of a distance, the view of the cathedral there sitting on top of the hill. It's a rather beautiful sight. I'm actually standing next to the canal, no surprise there, and I'm actually at the bottom of, I think there are a set of 9 locks that bring the level of the canal seriously downhill. Wow. If you've been to Bingley, it's a bit like that, with a bit more sunshine and with a higher temperature. Right, I'm in a bit of a quandary. I don't know what to do regarding the next 24-48 hours. There are various options. My warm showers chap hasn't come back to me, so I'm beginning to write that possibility off. That was in Agde on the coast. I wonder if there's a campsite in Béziers I could stay in, but do I want to stop? It's only 1 o'clock. I want to keep cycling. I could feasibly get to Sète by the end of the day. In fact, I could, no problem. The end of the route, the start of the Via Rona. But the problem with Sète is that there's just no accommodation there. There's no warm showers, there's no home camper, there's nothing cheap in terms of a hotel, and there appears to be no campsite. I have found a home camper place at a place called Montagnac, which is not far from Pézenas, which will be convenient for meeting Basil and Liz tomorrow, but it is another 32 kilometres from Sète. Can I get up there tonight? Could stay there 2 nights. I'm going to set off in the direction of, well, initially the centre of Béziers, and then continue down to Agde on the route. From here onwards, according to my map, it's all greenway, so no more rough tracks,
no more routes. Well, there might be routes, can't guarantee that, on tarmac. God, yeah. Decisions, and I don't really have any answers today. I'm just going to keep going and hope something turns up. It usually does. So that's it for episode 57 of the Cycling Europe podcast, part 6, I think it is, of the series of podcasts that I'm doing about my cycle around Europe in the summer of 2022. Thank you for listening. All I've got to do is to, in 15 minutes, meet my friends Basil and Liz at the Mairie, the local town hall here in Pézenas, and then we're going to spend the afternoon, evening catching up. It's a few years since I've seen them, so that should be a good way to spend the day. Then tomorrow, well, that's when it all starts again. I'm going to have to cycle down to Montpellier, about 50 kilometres. In Montpellier I'm going to catch a train, the 6th of my 10 trains. That's going to take me to Avignon, and then I'm going to start heading north on the Véloroute cycle route, which will hopefully take me all the way to Andermatt in the Alps, where I'll pick up the Rhine cycle route, and then that will hopefully in turn take me all the way back to Rotterdam. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Rob Ainsley again for providing the music. If you'd like any information about this trip or the cycling trips of the past or the podcast, then visit cyclingeurope.org. If you'd like to make a contribution to make the podcast and the website more sustainable, then please visit cyclingeurope.org/support, and any contributions that you can make will be very much appreciated. If you'd like to get in contact, all the contact details are at cyclingeurope.org/contact. So until episode 7, got to be careful with my numbers now, it's going to be episode 58 of the Cycling Europe podcast and episode 7 of this particular series, I hope, so I don't have to go back and correct this. Happy cycling, and I'm off now to meet Basil and Liz. Welcome to Pézenas. Oh, I'm very well.
Good to see you.
You've been out in the sun.
You have indeed.
Nice to see you.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Ah, well, I looked on